General Vax Thor stood in the grand chamber of the galactic throne, and every muscle in his four-armed body ached. The scars across his reptilian scales were still fresh, some barely closed from the medical pods. He had requested this emergency audience 3 times before the Emperor finally agreed to see him. Now standing before the crystalline form of Emperor Kalseth and the 12 council members representing the most powerful species in the galaxy, Vothor knew his career was probably over, but he had to try. The chamber was vast, built to intimidate. Pillars of compressed starlight held up a ceiling that showed a real-time map of the galactic empire. Thousands of systems glowed softly, all under the throne's control. All except one small yellow star at the edge of the map, barely noticeable among the others. General Vax Thor, the Emperor's voice resonated through the chamber, not from a mouth, but from the vibrations in his crystalline body. You have interrupted the council's session to deliver a warning. Speak. Vothor activated the hollow projector built into his armor. The air in front of him shimmered and transformed into a 3-dimensional battlefield. The council members leaned forward with mild interest. 3 months ago, my fleet encountered human vessels in the disputed sector near their system. Vax Thor began. His voice was steady, but those who knew him well could hear the tremor beneath. We had orders to perform a standard intimidation display, show strength, demand they acknowledge imperial authority, and return to base. It should have been routine. The hologram showed a small human exploration ship, barely the size of a galactic patrol vessel. It looked primitive, with visible welding marks and what appeared to be painted symbols on its hull. We disabled their engines with an ion pulse. Standard procedure. We boarded to arrest the crew. Vax Thor paused, his clawed hand unconsciously moving to a scar across his chest. There were 12 humans aboard. We sent 40 soldiers. Only 15 came back. One of the council members, a gaseous being contained in a specialized suit, made a sound like escaping steam. Surely you just general. Humans are barely spacefaring. They have no significant military technology. That is what I thought, Vax Thor said quietly. He changed the hologram, and now it showed footage from a soldier's helmet camera. The council chamber fell silent as they watched. The footage showed galactic soldiers entering a human ship's corridor. It was cramped, built for smaller beings. Then, the shooting started. A human male appeared, already wounded with purple blood. No, not blood. Some kind of hydraulic fluid spraying from a severed arm. The arm was gone. By all medical logic, the human should have been in shock, dying. Instead, he charged forward, firing a primitive kinetic weapon with his remaining hand and screaming words the translator rendered as, "Come on then." The galactic soldiers shot him 3 more times. He fell, but as he went down, he threw something. The grenade detonated in the confined space, killing 4 soldiers instantly. "They don't stop," Vothor said, his voice cutting through the shocked silence. "We analyzed their biology afterward. They have a chemical called adrenaline that floods their system during stress. It overrides pain, overrides logic. They kept fighting with injuries that would kill any of us twice over." He showed more footage. A human female trapped in a damaged section of the ship with no weapons had used a piece of broken pipe to kill 2 soldiers in hand-to-hand combat before being subdued. Another human had deliberately vented the atmosphere in his own section, killing himself and 6 galactic troops rather than surrender. "This is an anomaly," said Council Member Zach, a tall being with too many joints in her limbs. "You encountered resistance from a desperate crew. This proves nothing about the species as a whole." "I thought the same," Vax Thor admitted. He pulled up a data file. "So I researched them. I spent 3 months studying everything we know about humans." The hologram shifted to show Earth, a blue and green world that looked deceptively peaceful. Then it zoomed to show human cities, human faces, human life. "They are a death world species," Vax Thor continued. "Their planet has a gravity 1.3 times what most of us consider standard. The atmosphere has poisonous oxygen levels. Their world is filled with predators, natural disasters, diseases. They evolved not as the apex predator of their world, but as persistence hunters. Do you understand what that means?" The Emperor's crystalline form pulsed slowly, showing he was listening. It means they are not the strongest or the fastest. They evolved to chase their prey for days, weeks even, until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. They never give up. It is built into their very nature. Admiral Zorkath, who had been standing silently at the back of the chamber, finally spoke. He was a massive being, easily 3 meters tall, with thick armored plates covering his body. General Vax Thor. With respect, you sound frightened of a species that controls exactly one star system. They have no faster-than-light capability. Their most powerful weapons are fusion-based. We have planetary shields that could withstand their entire nuclear arsenal. I am frightened of them, Vthor said flatly, and the admission sent a ripple through the chamber. The general who had conquered 40 worlds in the Emperor's name, who had never retreated from a battle. He pulled up more data. They form pack bonds, not just with their own kind, but with other species. They will die for creatures they have known for mere days. They keep carnivorous predators in their homes as companions, and weep when these animals die. They have a concept they call spite, which means they will hurt themselves if it means hurting an enemy worse. The hologram showed human history now. Wars, terrible and destructive, covering their entire planet. In the last 100 of their years, they have killed over 100 million of their own species in warfare. They invented weapons capable of destroying their own world, built enough of them to end their civilization 10 times over. And the only reason they have not used them is the fear that the enemy would use them back. They call this mutually assured destruction, and they consider it a valid strategy for peace. This only proves they are violent and stupid, Zorath said dismissively. They nearly destroyed themselves. They are clearly not a threat to the Empire. They are violent, yes, Vthor agreed, but not stupid. In those same 100 years, they went from primitive aircraft to spacecraft. They went from basic computers to artificial intelligence. Their rate of technological advancement is faster than any species we have encountered. And all of it, has been driven by warfare. He showed designs of human weapons, kinetic kill missiles, nuclear warheads, chemical agents, biological warfare, weapons designed to destroy cities, to poison atmospheres, to make worlds uninhabitable. They have weapons they consider too terrible to use. Vaxer said, think about that. A species that has killed 100 million of its own kind has weapons they have mutually agreed are too horrible for warfare. I accessed their data networks. I read their literature, their entertainment, their philosophy. Do you know what I found? The chamber was completely silent. Now they have a saying, the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. They believe in action in the face of wrong is itself a moral failure. They have another saying, give me liberty or give me death. They value freedom over their own survival. Vax Thor's voice grew stronger, more urgent. They worship gods of war. They write songs about doomed last stands. Their greatest stories are about small groups defeating impossible odds. They teach their children that fighting against overwhelming opposition is noble. They have made heroes out of soldiers who held positions until every single one of them died. He showed images from human culture, ancient warriors, modern soldiers, fictional heroes, all fighting, all struggling, all refusing to surrender. When we boarded that ship, one of the humans was already dying from the initial attack. We found him in the medical bay, connected to machines keeping him alive. Do you know what he did? He disconnected himself from life support, picked up a weapon, and killed 3 more of my soldiers before his heart stopped. His last words, according to the translator, were worth it. Emperor Kals finally spoke, his voice resonating through the chamber. General, your concern is noted. However, we cannot allow a single species to remain outside imperial authority simply because they are violent. Many species resisted incorporation. All eventually submitted with come to 90, with considering of processed. This is different, Vax Thor insisted. Every species we have conquered had a breaking point, a threshold of casualties they would not cross, a government that could surrender, a will that could be broken. Humans do not have this. I found records of their wars, cities bombed to rubble, and the survivors continued fighting from the ruins. Soldiers cut off from all support, and they fought as individuals. Ships with no hope of survival, and the crews sang songs as they died. He pulled up one final piece of footage, saved for this moment. It showed a human soldier captured during the boarding action being interrogated. The human was young, barely into adulthood by their species standards. She had burns covering half her body and had lost 3 fingers on her left hand. The interrogator asked her why she had fought when surrender would have saved her life. The human girl smiled, blood on her teeth, and said something the translator struggled with. After a moment, the translation appeared, because you. That's why they have no word for surrender in some of their languages. Vaxthor said, the closest translation is tactical withdrawal, or temporary retreat, but not surrender, not giving up. Admiral Zorath laughed, a deep booming sound. Then they are fools who do not know when they are beaten. All the better for us. Emperor, I volunteer to lead the incorporation of the human system. It is resource-rich and strategically located. With your permission, I will bring these violent children into the Empire, where they can be properly controlled. Several council members voiced their agreement. The human system was valuable, and humanity clearly needed to be taught their place in the galactic order. Vaxthor felt his heart sinking. They were not listening. They thought he was being overcautious, cowardly even. He could see it in their postures, hear it in their voices. Emperor, I beg you, Vithor said. And the word beg from a general of his standing made several council members pause. Leave humanity alone. Quarantine their system. If you must monitor them, study them, but do not invade their world. They are not ready to join the galactic community, and we are not ready for what will happen if we try to force them. Your counsel is noted, General, the Emperor said, his tone making it clear the decision was already made. However, we cannot show weakness by avoiding a single system because they are violent. Admiral Zorkath, you will prepare a fleet. 500 ships should be more than sufficient. You will proceed to Earth, deliver our standard terms, and bring them into the Empire. Zorkath bowed, his armor plates scraping against each other. It will be my honor, Emperor. I will have this accomplished within 2 of their months. Vaxthor made one final attempt. There is something else. Something I have not mentioned yet. The humans have a concept in their philosophy and religion. They call death the last enemy. Not an enemy, but the enemy. The final one. The ultimate opponent. He looked around the chamber, making eye contact with each council member. They do not fear death. They have declared war on it. They fight diseases that should be incurable. They invent machines to restart stopped hearts. They freeze their dead in hopes that future technology will revive them. They send their elderly into medical facilities where machines keep them alive long past when nature would have taken them. And they do this not because they are afraid of death, but because they refuse to accept it. Vaxthor's voice dropped to barely above a whisper, but in the silent chamber, everyone heard him clearly. What do you think beings who have declared war on death itself will do when we threaten them with it? The Emperor considered this for a long moment. Then his crystalline form pulsed with what might have been amusement. Then we shall teach them that some wars cannot be won. This audience is concluded. Admiral Zorkath, begin your preparations. General Vaxthor, you are dismissed. As the chamber began to empty, Vaxthor stood frozen for a moment. He had failed. He looked up at the map of the galaxy on the ceiling at that small yellow star and felt a chill run through his body. Admiral Zorath approached him, placing a heavy hand on Vithor's shoulder. Do not feel bad, old friend. You have grown cautious in your age. It happens to all warriors eventually. I will show you how easily these humans can be brought to heel. Vaxthor looked at the Admiral at his confident posture, his assured smile. I hope you are right, he said quietly. For all our sakes. I truly hope you are right. But he did not believe it. He had looked into human eyes as they died. He had seen something there that terrified him more than any weapon or army. He had seen an absolute, unshakable conviction that they would never stop fighting. Not ever. Not while a single human still drew breath. As he left the chamber, Vathor sent an encrypted message to his homeworld, to his mate, and his offspring. A simple instruction. Begin stockpiling supplies and prepare defensive positions. The Empire was about to learn a lesson it would never forget. And Vaxthor suspected that by the time that lesson was learned, the galaxy would be a very different place. Above the chamber, The map of the galaxy glowed peacefully. Thousands of systems under the throne's control, but that small yellow star at the edge seemed to vex Thor's eyes to pulse with a light of its own, a warning light that no one else could see. Humanity had been noticed, and nothing would ever be the same again. The warning came 6 months after the Emperor gave his approval. Every telescope on Earth, every satellite, every deep space monitoring station detected them simultaneously. 500 ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system, near the orbit of Neptune. Admiral Yuki Tanaka was in her quarters aboard the UED's Defiance. When the alert came through, she had been reviewing supply manifests, the boring but necessary work of keeping a defense fleet operational. The klaxon shattered the silence, and her tablet immediately displayed the emergency bulletin. All hands to battle stations. This is not a drill. Unknown fleet detected. Count 500+ vessels. Classification. Hostile. Oh, Yuki was moving before she finished reading. She pulled on her uniform jacket as she ran, her fingers working the buttons through muscle memory. By the time she reached the bridge, her crew was already at their stations. The main view screen showed the alien fleet enhanced by their long-range sensors. Mother of God, her tactical officer whispered. The fleet was massive. Each ship was easily twice the size of humanity's largest carriers. They moved in perfect formation, a display of power and coordination that humanity's scattered defense forces could never match. Communications. Any attempts to hail us? Yuki asked, sliding into her command chair. Nothing yet, Admiral. They are just sitting there waiting. Power levels. Weapons are hot, but not charging. They want us to see them. Yuki understood. This was intimidation. Show overwhelming force. Make the enemy realize resistance is futile, and accept surrender without firing a shot. It was a tactic as old as warfare itself. Get me a channel to Earth Command, she ordered. And someone wake up the Secretary General. Tell them we have visitors. The next hour was chaos. Every government on Earth was screaming for information. The civilian population was in a panic. Stock markets crashed. Religious leaders declared it the end times. Riots started in a dozen major cities as people either tried to flee or decided to loot while they could. But the military knew what to do. They had planned for this, hoped it would never happen, but planned nonetheless. Humanity had known ever since they first left Earth that they were not alone in the universe. The discovery of ruins on Mars had proved that. Ancient cities, long dead, left by a civilization that had reached the stars and then vanished. Humanity had looked at those ruins and asked themselves a question. So they had prepared. While the politicians talked about peace and exploration, the military built weapons. While scientists studied the ruins, engineers designed ships that could fight. Earth's defense fleet was small. Only 47 ships, but every single one of them had been built with one purpose: to make anyone who attacked humanity pay a terrible price. Admiral Tanaka watched her tactical display as the human fleet assembled. Ships from 12 different nations, all under her command by emergency protocol. Chinese destroyers, American carriers, Russian missile cruisers, European defense platforms, all of them moving into defensive positions around Earth and the inner colonies. The alien fleet waited for 6 hours. Then finally, they transmitted. The signal came in on all frequencies, impossible to block. It was audio only, which surprised Yuki. The voice that spoke was clearly artificial, a translation program of some kind. Attention, primitive species. You are hereby notified that your system falls under the jurisdiction of the Galactic Empire. You will cease all military activities and prepare to receive Imperial representatives. Any resistance will be met with appropriate force. You have one of your planetary rotations to comply. This is your only warning. The channel closed. Yuki sat in her chair, her face calm, her mind racing. She looked at her crew, saw their fear, their anger, their determination. Then she stood. Communications. Open a channel. All frequencies. I want them to hear this clearly. Her communications officer worked quickly, and then nodded. Channel open. Admiral, they are definitely receiving. Yuki took a breath and spoke clearly into the microphone. Unknown fleet. This is Admiral Yuki Tanaka of the United Earth Defense Force. You have entered our system without permission. You have threatened our people. You have one chance to leave peacefully. Turn your ships around and go. If you do not, you will regret it. This is your only warning." She cut the channel before they could respond. Her tactical officer stared at her. "Admiral, did we just threaten a fleet 500 strong with our 47 ships?" "Yes," Yuki said calmly. "And now we prepare. If they are smart, they will leave. If they are not, we show them why Earth is still free." On the bridge of the Imperial flagship, Admiral Zorkath listened to the human transmission and laughed. The sound echoed through the command center, and his crew joined in. Such arrogance from such a primitive species. "They threaten us," he said, still chuckling. "This will at least be entertaining." His second in command, a careful officer named Richtol, was not laughing. "Sir, perhaps we should take their warning seriously," General Vax Thor's report suggested. "General Vax Thor is an old warrior who has lost his nerve," Zorkath interrupted. "Look at them. 47 ships against our 500. Their largest vessel would fit inside our cargo bay. What exactly do you think they can do to us?" My team." Richtol had no answer to that. "Target their outer colony," Zorkath ordered. "The one on the moon they call Titan. Destroy it. Show them what resistance costs." "Sir, there are civilians there." "Then they should evacuate. We are not barbarians. Give them 1 hour." The human colony on Titan received the warning with 58 minutes to spare. The colony administrator, a woman named Sarah Chen, immediately ordered evacuation. 3,000 miners and their families rushed to the transport ships, but Sarah stayed behind with a crew of 20 volunteers. They were engineers, explosives, experts, and one very angry mining foreman named Duke Morrison, who had worked on Titan for 15 years. "They want our colony," Duke growled, his thick accent making the translator work hard. "Fine, let them have it, but I will be damned if we leave them anything useful." They worked fast. Titan was a mining colony, which meant it had explosives, lots of explosives. They rigged every building, every tunnel, every piece of equipment. Then they uploaded a virus into the automated systems, one that would cause a catastrophic failure in the methane processing plant. Sarah stood in the control room, watching the countdown. The alien ships were in orbit now, their weapons charging. She could see them on the monitors, huge and terrible. "Everyone out," she ordered. "Get to the last transport." "What about you, Administrator?" one of the engineers asked. "Someone needs to push the button," Sarah said calmly. "I am the colony administrator. This is my responsibility. Now go." They went, reluctant but understanding. Duke was the last to leave, and he paused at the door. "You are a stubborn woman, Sarah Chen." "I am a human, Duke Morrison. We are all stubborn now. Get out of here." Duke left. Sarah waited until she received confirmation that the transport was clear, and then she activated the detonation sequence. She had 30 seconds. She used 25 of them to record a message. "To whoever finds this, Titan was our home. You took it from us. I hope you choke on it." Then she pushed the final button and the world turned white. The explosion was spectacular. The methane processing plant went first, a fireball that lit up the dark moon. Then the charges in the mines detonated in sequence, and the entire colony collapsed into the tunnels below. As a final touch, Sarah had reprogrammed the orbital docking platform to decouple from its supports. The massive structure, weighing thousands of tons, fell toward Titan's surface in the low gravity, but it did not fall straight down. Sarah had fired its positioning thrusters one last time, giving it lateral momentum. It fell like a spear directly into the path of the nearest Imperial destroyer. The galactic ship tried to evade, but it was too close, and the platform was too large. Metal screamed against metal. The platform tore through the destroyer's shields and ripped a hole in its hull. Atmosphere vented, fires erupted, and the ship began to list. Admiral Zorkath watched in disbelief as one of his ships was crippled by a piece of debris. No, not debris. The humans had weaponized their own infrastructure. "Status on the destroyer," he demanded. "Heavy damage, sir. 40% casualties. It will need to withdraw for repairs." Zorkath felt a flash of anger. One ship damaged, and they had not even engaged the enemy fleet yet. He thought of General Vaxthor's warnings and pushed them aside. This was a lucky shot, nothing more. "Begin the assault," he ordered. Destroy their defense fleet. Show them the price of resistance. The Imperial fleet moved forward, engines burning bright in the darkness of space. The human fleet waited near Mars, positioned between the invaders and Earth. Admiral Tanaka watched them come. Her hands were steady on the armrests of her chair. She had fought in wars before, back when nations still fought each other for resources and territory. She had seen death. She had ordered people to die. But this was different. This was for all of humanity. All ships weapons free, she ordered. Launch all drones, activate the mines, and get me a firing solution on their flagship. Her crew moved with practice efficiency. The battle began. The humans struck first, which surprised the Imperial fleet. Hundreds of autonomous drones, each no larger than a fighter craft, swarmed toward the galactic ships. They were fast and maneuverable, and they were not trying to fight. They were trying to ram. Evasive action. Commanders across the Imperial fleet shouted as the drones closed in. Point defense weapons fired, destroying dozens of drones. But there were too many. They struck like bullets. Their nuclear reactors rigged to overload on impact. 3 Imperial frigates died in the first 30 seconds, overwhelmed by suicide attacks. What kind of species weaponizes their own technology like this? Richtel shouted, disbelief clear in his voice. A desperate one, Zorkath replied. But he was beginning to feel something he had not felt in many years. Doubt. The human ships opened fire next. Their weapons were primitive. Railguns and missiles mostly. But they used them with devastating effectiveness. They did not try to fight ship to ship. Instead, they launched missiles on ballistic trajectories and then retreated, forcing the Imperial ships to chase them into prepared kill zones. The space between Mars and Earth was full of mines. Thousands of them left dormant until now. As the Imperial fleet pursued the retreating humans, the mines activated. More ships died, blown apart by weapons that cost almost nothing to build, but everything to defend against. Admiral Tanaka stood on her bridge, watching the tactical display. They were losing. Of course they were losing. You could not win a battle when outnumbered 10-1. But winning was not the objective. Captain Morrison, she said into her communicator, speaking to the commander of the UED's Retribution. You are clear to execute Protocol Omega. Understood, Admiral, came the reply. It has been an honor serving with you. The honor was mine, Captain. Give them hell. The Retribution was one of humanity's oldest ships, a carrier that had seen better days. Its reactor had been damaged in the opening exchange, and it was venting atmosphere. By all rights, it should have withdrawn. Instead, it turned toward the Imperial flagship and accelerated. Sir, one of their carriers is on a collision course. A sensor operator shouted on Zorkath's bridge. Destroy it, Zorkath ordered. Weapons fire lanced out, striking the Retribution repeatedly. Its shields failed. Armor burned away. Entire sections of the ship were torn open to space. But it did not stop. It could not stop. Its crew was dead, its weapons destroyed, its systems failing. But its engines still worked, and Captain Morrison had locked the controls. The Retribution struck the Imperial flagship at a significant fraction of the speed of light. The resulting explosion could be seen from Earth, a new star that burned for 3 seconds and then faded. When the light cleared, the Imperial flagship was gone. So was the Retribution. So were 2 other Imperial ships that had been too close to the blast. Admiral Zorkath survived barely. He had been thrown across his bridge by the impact, and his command chair had crushed one of his legs. Smoke filled the air, and emergency lights flashed. Status, he shouted, coughing. Flagship destroyed, sir. You are on the secondary command ship. We have pulled you from the wreckage. Zorkath tried to stand and failed. His leg was broken. Maybe worse. The battle. We are winning, sir. The human fleet is down to 12 ships, but our losses are significant. 47 ships destroyed or disabled. 47 ships, the same number the humans had started with. They had traded 1 for 1 against an enemy that should have crushed them. What are the humans doing? Zorkath asked. The remaining ships are retreating toward Earth. They are still fighting but falling back. Zorath hauled himself up using a console. His second-in-command tried to help him, but he waved them away. He looked at the tactical display at the 12 remaining human ships and made his decision. Pursue them. Destroy them all. I want every human ship turned to debris and then we take their planet." The battle raged for 6 more hours. One by one, the human ships fell. They fought with everything they had, expending every weapon, every missile, every drone. When the UED's Defiance's weapons were empty, Admiral Tanaka gave her final order. "All hands. This is the Admiral. Abandon ship. Get to the escape pods." That is a direct order. Her crew hesitated, and she had to repeat herself 3 times before they obeyed. She watched them go, each pod launching toward Earth, hoping they would make it through the battle. When the last pod was away, she sat alone on her bridge. The ship was dying around her, systems failing one by one. She opened a communication channel to the Imperial fleet. "This is Admiral Yuki Tanaka. You wanted to see what humans do when threatened. I hope you are paying attention. You have won this battle, but you have not won the war. Earth is still free, and while a single human still breathes, it will remain free. We are coming for you, all of you, and we will not stop. We will never stop." Then she activated the reactor overload and sent her ship directly into the nearest Imperial cruiser. The explosion added one more light to the darkness. When the battle ended, the Imperial fleet had lost 89 ships. The human defense fleet was gone, completely destroyed. Not a single human warship remained. Zorkath sat in the medical bay, his leg in a regeneration field, and tried to understand what had happened. He had won. Earth's defenses were shattered. The path to the planet was clear, but he had lost 89 ships, nearly 1/5 of his fleet, against an enemy that should have been defeated in minutes. He opened his communicator, and for the first time since the battle began, thought about General Vithor's warnings. A message was waiting for him. It had been sent during the battle, but marked low priority by the automated systems. It was from one of the ships that had boarded a damaged human vessel. The message was brief. Attached was a recording. It showed human soldiers trapped in a section of their ship that was venting atmosphere. They knew they were going to die. The recording had audio. They were singing. Zorkath listened to the song, the translator struggling with the words. It was something about standing together, about never surrendering, about dying free rather than living in chains. The humans sang until the air ran out, and then they died. Zorkath closed the message and looked at the tactical display. Earth was there, waiting, billions of humans, and if the fleet was any indication, every single one of them ready to die rather than submit. He thought about turning back. He genuinely considered it, but the Emperor was watching. The Council was waiting for his report, and he had come too far to retreat now. "Prepare for orbital bombardment," he ordered. "We take their planet." But as the fleet moved toward Earth, Admiral Zorath made a note in his personal log. A single sentence that he would never share with anyone. General Vithor was right. The bombardment of Earth began 3 days after the space battle. Admiral Zorkath had taken those days to reorganize his fleet, repair what could be repaired, and prepare for what he expected would be the final phase of the conquest. He had sent messages to the planet's surface, offering terms of surrender. He had broadcast promises of fair treatment, of integration into the Galactic Empire, of the benefits that came with joining a civilization that spanned thousands of worlds. Every message was ignored. Instead, Earth broadcast its own message. It came from someone who called himself the Secretary General of the United Nations, speaking on behalf of all of humanity. The message was simple and direct. "We reject your authority. We reject your empire. We reject your terms. Earth is ours, and it will remain ours. If you want it, come and take it. We will be waiting." So, Zorkath gave the order, and the bombardment began. The Imperial fleet focused on military targets first. Orbital defense platforms, ground-based missile silos, radar installations, command centers, beams of concentrated energy lanced down from the sky, and explosions bloomed across every continent. Cities burned. Mountains were leveled. Entire military bases simply ceased to exist, and humanity disappeared. It took Zorkath 3 days to realize what was happening. The satellites that the humans had positioned around their planet went dark, self-destructed, to deny the Imperial's intelligence. Without them, orbital bombardment became less precise. They had to rely on their own sensors, their own intelligence, and they found nothing. The human military had gone underground, not just into bunkers, but deep underground into facilities that had been prepared for nuclear war during humanity's own conflicts. Command centers buried under mountains, factories hidden in old mines, entire populations relocated to subterranean shelters that could sustain them for months, even years. They planned for this, Rickstall said, studying the sensor data. These bunkers are old, some of them decades old. They have been preparing for an invasion for generations. Then we dig them out, Zorath replied. Prepare ground forces. We will occupy the major population centers and force them to surrender. The first landing occurred near what had been New York City. 2,000 galactic soldiers equipped with the best weapons the Empire could provide descended in dropships. They expected resistance. They were ready for it. What they found was a ghost town. The city was empty. Buildings stood intact but abandoned. Cars sat in the streets, their engines cold. The soldiers moved through the streets in formation, weapons ready, but there was no one to fight. Where are they? One soldier muttered, and his question echoed through every squad. They found out after dark the attacks came from everywhere and nowhere. A sniper shot from a building, killing an officer, and by the time the soldiers returned fire, the sniper was gone. An improvised explosive device detonated under a patrol, killing 6 soldiers. Chemical weapons forbidden by galactic law were deployed in subway tunnels, forcing the soldiers to abandon those positions. And every night the humans broadcast music, loud, defiant music that echoed through the empty streets. The lyrics were different, but the message was always the same. We are still here. We are still fighting, and we will never stop. The galactic soldiers began to hate the music. After 2 weeks of occupation, the ground forces had secured exactly 3 city blocks. They had lost 300 soldiers, and they had not seen a single living human, except for the brief moments before those humans killed someone and vanished. This is insane, a squad leader reported to his commander. They are not fighting like soldiers. There is no front line, no army to engage. They are in the walls, under the streets, in the buildings. We blow up a structure, and they attack from somewhere else. Zorkath ordered more troops deployed. 5,000 soldiers became 10,000, then 20,000. The numbers did not matter. The result was the same. The humans were using tactics refined over thousands of years of warfare against each other. Guerrilla warfare, asymmetric warfare, terrorism, some would call it, but the humans called it resistance. In the ruins of Beijing, a galactic patrol found a weapons cache hidden in a school. When they investigated, the entire building exploded. 40 soldiers died, and the humans responsible were never found. In what had been London, the occupation forces tried to establish a forward base in a government building. They spent 3 days fortifying it, installing shields and sensors. On the 4th day, the humans tunneled under it and flooded the basement with poisonous gas. In Moscow, the soldiers found themselves under attack from the civilians they were trying to protect. Elderly humans threw homemade explosives from windows. Children lured patrols into ambushes. No one was safe. No one could be trusted. They do not have rules. One traumatized soldier told the medic treating his wounds, "No rules of war, no limits. They use weapons we banned centuries ago. They hide among their own civilians. They booby-trap their dead. What kind of species does this?" Quote, the medic had no answer, but the question spread through the ranks and morale began to decline. 3 months into the occupation, Admiral Zorkath received a communication from a captured human. The soldiers had found her in the ruins of a hospital, wounded and unable to escape. She was young, barely an adult by human standards, with burns covering most of her body. The interrogator asked her why she had fought when she could have surrendered and lived. He asked her if she understood that resistance was futile, that humanity had already lost. The girl looked directly into the camera, her eyes clear despite her pain, and spoke words that would haunt Zorkath for the rest of his life. "You should have listened to your general," she said. "We have been killing each other for 10,000 years. We know every way there is to make someone suffer, every tactic, every strategy. And we have been practicing on each other, learning, improving, waiting. You think this is war? You have no idea what war is, but you are going to learn." She died an hour later from her injuries, refusing medical treatment, refusing to answer any more questions. Zorkath ordered her last words classified, but they had already spread through the fleet. The soldiers talked, and fear began to grow. Then the humans changed tactics. It started with the supply lines. Ships bringing supplies from the outer system began disappearing. Not destroyed, not damaged, just gone. The Imperial fleet sent search parties, and what they found made no sense. The supply ships were adrift, their crews dead, but there was no sign of attack, no damage to the ships. Medical examination revealed that the crews had been exposed to biological agents, diseases that killed within hours. Where did they get biological weapons? Zorkath demanded. They had no space fleet. We destroyed it. Rickall pulled up intelligence reports, his hands shaking slightly. Sir, we did not destroy it. We destroyed what they showed us, the ships they let us see. They had others hidden in the asteroid belt, in the moons of Jupiter, in deep space. And they have been building more. More? That is impossible. We have been watching this system for months. We would have detected construction. They built them inside asteroids. Sir, hollowed them out and assembled the ships inside. By the time our sensors detected them, they were already operational. Zorkath felt something cold settle in his stomach. How many ships? Unknown. We have confirmed at least 30 new human warships, but there could be more. They have automated construction facilities scattered throughout the system, all of them hidden, all of them producing weapons. 30 ships should not matter. Zorkath still had over 400 vessels under his command, but these new human ships were different from the ones they had destroyed in the first battle. These ships had been built specifically to fight galactic vessels using technology captured from disabled Imperial ships. They had reverse-engineered shield generators. They had copied weapon systems. They had learned the first engagement with the new human fleet occurred near Jupiter. A galactic supply convoy escorted by 6 warships was ambushed by 8 human vessels. The battle lasted 12 minutes. The human ships won, not through superior technology or firepower, but through tactics that the Galactic Navy had never encountered. They used the radiation from Jupiter to mask their approach. They fired missiles on ballistic trajectories, making them look like space debris until they activated at close range. They concentrated fire on single targets, destroying ships one at a time instead of spreading their attacks. And when one human ship was disabled, its crew set the reactor to overload and rammed the nearest Imperial vessel. The Galactics lost all 6 escorts and 3 supply ships. The humans lost 2 vessels, and once again, the recording of the human crew's last moments was recovered. They had been singing. Zorkath watched the footage and felt rage building inside him. What is the song? What are they always singing? Zorkath. The translator provided the lyrics. It was a different song this time, but the theme was the same. Something about standing together against impossible odds, about never surrendering, about choosing death over submission. They treat dying like it is glorious, Zorath said quietly, like it is an honor. How do you fight an enemy that wants to die for their cause? You do not, a voice said from behind him. Zorkath turned to see General Vaxthor standing in the doorway of his office. The old general had been assigned as an advisor after Zorath's initial reports had reached the Emperor. General, Zorkath said, keeping his voice neutral. I did not expect you, General. No one ever does, Forthor replied. He moved into the room, his movements showing his age and his scars. I came because the Emperor is concerned. You have been here for 3 months, and you have not secured the planet. The planet is a death trap. Every building, every street, every square meter of ground could hide an enemy. My soldiers are dying in 1s and 2s, killed by an enemy they never see. I warned you, Vithor said without anger. I told the Council what humanity was, but no one listened. So you came here to say you were right, to gloat. I came to help you minimize the casualties, because this war is lost. Admiral, you just do not know it yet. Zorkath felt his temper flare. We control the orbitals. We have 400 ships. They have scattered resistance fighters and maybe 30 ships. How have we lost? Vaxis Thor activated a holographic display showing the solar system. In the 3 months you have been here, how many human military personnel have you killed? Estimated 6,000. And how many soldiers have you lost? Zorkath hesitated. 4,000. But that number includes non-combat casualties. So you have lost 2/3 as many troops as you have killed, fighting an enemy with no space fleet, no orbital defenses, and no unified command structure. Vax Thor zoomed the display to show Earth. You control 3 cities, or rather small parts of 3 cities. The rest of the planet is still in human hands. Their industrial capacity is largely intact because they built it underground. Their population is mostly alive because they evacuated before you arrived. And every day you stay here, they grow stronger while you grow weaker. Then what do you suggest? Leave now. Tell the Emperor that Earth cannot be conquered, or at least not without an effort that would the Empire. Quarantine the system and move on. I cannot do that. The Emperor would see it as cowardice. Then you will die here, Vax Thor said simply. You and every soldier under your command, because humans do not surrender, and they do not forgive. They will fight you for years, decades, generations. Zorkath wanted to argue, but the numbers did not lie. In 3 months, he had lost more troops than in any campaign in his career, and he had nothing to show for it except ruined cities and traumatized soldiers. How long? He asked quietly. How long could we hold out if we committed to total war? Vax Thor considered the question seriously. Based on current casualty rates and accounting for human learning curve, 2 years. Maybe 3 before your fleet is too damaged to maintain orbital control. After that, the surviving humans would reclaim their planet, repair their industry, and build a fleet large enough to threaten Imperial space. You are saying we cannot win. I am saying you have already lost. The only question is, how many more of your soldiers you send to die before you accept it? Zorkath stood and walked to the window. Outside, he could see Earth below, blue and green and beautiful. Somewhere down there, humans were preparing their next attack. Somewhere in the asteroid belt, more ships were being built. And somewhere in the darkness between the stars, General Vax Thor's words were echoing with a truth he did not want to accept. He had come to conquer humanity. Instead, humanity was teaching him what defeat felt like. A message appeared on his terminal. Another patrol had gone missing, this time in the ruins of Tokyo. 15 soldiers last seen entering a subway station. No bodies found, no survivors. And according to the reports, someone had been playing music from speakers hidden in the tunnels. A human song about rising from the ashes, about never giving up, about standing against the darkness. Zorkath closed his eyes and made a decision. Contact the fleet. Order all ground forces to consolidate their positions. We are shifting to a defensive posture. A wise choice, Vithor said. I am not retreating, Zorkath said sharply. Not yet. But I am going to request reinforcements from the Emperor. If we are going to hold this system, we need more ships, more soldiers. Vax Thor's expression suggested he knew that reinforcements would not change anything. But he said nothing. Some lessons had to be learned through experience. On Earth, in a bunker 3 kilometers below the Rocky Mountains, Elena Vasquez read the intelligence report about the galactic forces consolidating. She was the commander of the North American Resistance, a former Special Forces operator who had been preparing for this fight her entire career. They are getting scared, one of her lieutenants said. Good, Elena replied. Scared soldiers make mistakes, and when they make mistakes, we kill them. Pass the word to all cells. Increase the pressure. Hit them every night, every day. Give them no rest. Let them feel what it is like to be hunted. The message went out through encrypted channels to resistance cells across the planet. In Paris, in Cairo, in Mumbai, in every city where the Galactics had landed, humans prepared their weapons and planned their attacks. Above, Admiral Zorkath waited for reinforcements that would take months to arrive. Below, humanity sharpened their knives and sang their songs of defiance. The war had just begun, and already the Galactics were learning a lesson that would echo across the stars. Humanity did not fight to win. They fought because they refused to lose. And there was a difference, a critical difference, that would cost the Empire more than they could possibly imagine. In his private quarters, Zorkath made an entry in his personal log. Day 90 of the occupation. Casualties continue to mount. Morale is declining. The humans show no signs of surrender. I begin to understand what General Vithor meant when he said they had declared war on death itself. They do not fear dying. They fear living under our rule, more than they fear their own extinction. How do you defeat an enemy like that? He had no answer, and deep down in a place he would never admit to anyone, he suspected there was no answer. The grind would continue, and humanity would make them pay for every meter of ground, every day of occupation, every life taken. And somewhere in the darkness, a human teenager with burns across half her body had spoken a truth that would haunt the Galactic Empire for generations. You have no idea what war is, but you are going to learn. 1 year after the invasion began, something changed. Admiral Zorkath felt it before he saw it. A shift in the atmosphere aboard his flagship, a tension among his officers that had not been there before. The daily casualty reports had become routine, expected. The endless grind of occupation had settled into a grim normalcy. But on the morning that marked the 1-year anniversary, something was different. The first sign came from deep space sensors. A galactic listening post on the edge of the solar system simply stopped transmitting. No distress call, no warning. One moment it was there, the next it was silent. Could be equipment failure, Rickstall suggested when the report reached the command deck. Send a ship to investigate, Zorkath ordered. But he knew deep in his bones that it was not equipment failure. The ship never returned. 2 hours later, every sensor in the solar system detected the same thing, simultaneously, faster than light signatures, dozens of them appearing throughout human space, not arriving from outside the system, but emerging from within it. That is impossible, a sensor operator said, his voice shaking. FTL drives do not work that deep in a gravity well. The stellar mass interferes with the dimensional equations. Tell that to the humans, Zorkath said quietly, watching the tactical display as red icons multiplied across the screen. The human fleet had been building in secret for a year, hidden in the asteroid belt, assembled in the moons of Jupiter and Saturn, constructed inside hollowed-out asteroids that masked their energy signatures. And they had not just been building ships. They had been reverse engineering galactic technology, learning, improving, adapting. The new human fleet consisted of 96 ships. They were smaller than Imperial vessels, but faster, more maneuverable, and they were equipped with weapons that made Zorath's blood run cold. The first human ship to open fire did so from within the atmosphere of Jupiter. It rose from the gas giant's clouds like a predator emerging from deep water, already at combat speed, and fired a weapon the Galactics had never seen before. The projectile was a rod of depleted uranium, accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed by magnetic coils running the length of the ship. It had no explosive, no warhead. It did not need one. At that velocity, simple kinetic energy was enough. The rod struck a galactic battlecruiser and punched clean through it, entering through the bow and exiting through the stern. The ship did not explode. It simply broke apart. Structural integrity destroyed. Reactors failing. Atmosphere venting. Evasive action, Zorkath shouted. But his fleet was not designed for this kind of combat. Imperial doctrine relied on shields and armor to absorb damage, while returning fire with energy weapons. But the human kinetic weapons hit too hard, too fast. Shields meant to stop energy beams were useless against solid projectiles moving at relativistic speeds. The battle that followed was chaos. The human ships did not fight like the vessels Zorkath had destroyed a year ago. They fought like pack hunters, coordinating their attacks, focusing fire, exploiting every weakness in Imperial defenses. And they were not fighting alone. From Earth's surface, from the moon, from Mars and the asteroid belt, missiles launched, thousands of them, most of them simple kinetic kill vehicles, dumb weapons with minimal guidance. But there were thousands of them, and they forced the galactic fleet to split their attention. "Sir, we are being overwhelmed," Richtell reported. 30 ships have taken critical damage. The humans are targeting our larger vessels specifically. Zorkath watched as another battle cruiser died, this one to a swarm of human fighters that had somehow gotten past the point defenses. The fighters were piloted, not drones. He could see them on the tactical display, tiny signatures that moved with purpose and precision. And then they started ramming one by one. When their weapons were exhausted, or when they saw an opportunity, the human pilots simply drove their fighters into galactic ships. They aimed for command decks, for reactor compartments, for weapons arrays, and they did not hesitate. They are insane, A weapons officer whispered. No, Zorath said, his voice hollow. They are committed. There is a difference. The battle raged for 8 hours. When it finally ended, the human fleet withdrew, but not before delivering a message. It was broadcast on all frequencies in perfect galactic standard. And it came from a human woman whose face appeared on every screen in the Imperial fleet. She was older than most of the soldiers they had encountered, with gray hair and scars that suggested she had been fighting for a long time. She wore a uniform that marked her as a ship captain, and her eyes were cold. I am Captain Sarah Chen, she said. 1 year ago, you destroyed my home on Titan. You killed my friends, my colleagues, people I loved. I survived, and I have spent the last year building the ship I am standing on. I named it Retribution after the ship that rammed your flagship in the first battle. She paused and her expression hardened. You came to our home, and you brought war. You thought we would surrender, that we would accept your rule. You were wrong. We do not surrender. We do not forget. And we do not forgive. The display behind her changed to show a star map. It showed the Galactic Empire, thousands of systems connected by trade routes and supply lines, and it showed red markers appearing on several of those systems. While you have been occupying Earth, we have been learning about you, Captain Chen continued. We know where your homeworlds are. We know where your colonies are located. We know your supply routes, your infrastructure, your weaknesses, and we have sent ships to all of them. Zorkath felt his heart stop. What? You brought total war to our doorstep, Chen said. Now we return the favor. This is not revenge. This is justice. This is proportional response. You taught us what you fear most, and now we will use it against you. The transmission ended. For a moment, the command deck was silent. Then the communications officer spoke, his voice shaking. Sir, we are receiving reports from across Imperial space. Human ships have attacked the Catherine homeworld, the Zaxian colonies, the supply depot at Riel 7. They are hitting targets throughout the Empire. The Zaxian colonies. The Zaxian colonies. How many ships? Zorkath demanded. Unknown, sir. At least 20 confirmed sightings. But the attacks are coordinated across dozens of light years. They must have been planning this for months. Quote, Zorkath pulled up the tactical display, expanding it to show the entire region. The red markers spread across the map like a disease, each one representing a human attack. They were not trying to conquer. They were destroying infrastructure, targeting civilian populations, using the same tactics the Empire had used against Earth. And they were using weapons that violated every galactic convention on warfare. The report from the Catherine homeworld made Zorkath physically ill. The human ships had deployed a biological weapon, a modified virus designed to target Catherine physiology specifically. Millions were sick, hospitals overwhelmed. The casualty projections were catastrophic. On the Zaxian colonies, the humans had used nuclear weapons, something the Empire had not seen in warfare for centuries. Entire cities were gone, the land poisoned for generations. At Riel 7, a major supply depot that fed a dozen Imperial fleets, the humans had done something even worse. They had crashed an asteroid into the orbital station at relativistic speed. The debris field had destroyed the station and rained down on the planet below, causing impacts equivalent to hundreds of nuclear weapons. They are animals, Ricall said, reading the reports. This is barbaric. This violates every law of civilized warfare. We bombed their cities from orbit, Zorath reminded him quietly. We killed their civilians. We invaded their home. Did you think they would respond with honor and restraint? But there are rules. There are no rules in total war. Zorkath interrupted. We taught them that. Now they are teaching us. A priority message arrived from the Galactic Throne. Zorkath opened it with shaking hands. It was short and direct. Admiral Zorkath, you are hereby ordered to withdraw all forces from the human system immediately. Return to the capital for debriefing. This campaign is suspended. Pending review. Suspended. Not ended. Suspended. As if they might come back. As if this was just a temporary setback. Zorkath wanted to laugh, but the sound would have been too bitter. Prepare the fleet for withdrawal, he ordered. All ground forces are to be evacuated within 48 hours. Anything we cannot take, we destroy. But even as he gave the orders, he knew it was too late. The humans had learned too much, grown too strong. They had tasted galactic blood, and they liked it. The evacuation was a nightmare. Human resistance forces attacked every landing zone, every transport. They did not try to stop the evacuation, but they made it as costly as possible. Soldiers died trying to reach their ships. Equipment had to be abandoned. And through it all, the humans played their music, their songs of victory and defiance. As the last transport lifted off from Earth carrying the survivors of the occupation force, someone detonated a series of charges along the coastline where the Galactics had established their main base. The explosion was shaped, directed, and it threw tons of debris into the path of the ascending ships. 3 transports were destroyed. 700 soldiers died in sight of escape. Admiral Zorkath watched from orbit as the last of his ground forces left Earth's surface. Out of 20,000 soldiers who had landed, fewer than 12,000 were leaving. The rest were dead, buried in the rubble of human cities or simply missing, and Earth was still free. The Imperial fleet began its withdrawal from the solar system. A ragged formation of damaged ships and exhausted crews. They left behind the wreckage of over 150 vessels, the graves of tens of thousands of soldiers, and a warning that would echo through the galaxy. As they reached the edge of the system, preparing to jump to faster than light, one final message came from Earth. It was audio only, a human voice speaking calmly and clearly. You came to our home, and you learned what we are capable of. We did not want this war, but you gave us no choice. Now we know where you live. We know how you fight. We know how you die. Leave us alone, and we will leave you alone. But if you ever return, if you ever threaten Earth again, we will burn your empire to ashes. This is not a threat. This is a promise. The transmission ended. Zorkath sat in his command chair, staring at the view screen as the human system disappeared behind them. He thought about the soldiers he had lost, the ships that would never return, the civilians on Imperial worlds who were dying from human weapons even now. And he thought about General Vaxis Thor's warning, delivered in the council chamber so long ago. Leave humanity alone. They should have listened. As the fleet jumped to FTL, leaving the Sol system behind, Zoroth received one more message. It was from General Vax Thor, and it contained only a single sentence. Welcome back, Admiral. We need to talk about what comes next, because the war was not over. It had only just begun. Humanity had defeated the invasion, but they had also learned something dangerous. They had learned that they could fight the Empire and win. They had learned that the great and powerful galactic civilization was not invincible, and they had learned where the Empire's worlds were located, in bunkers across Earth, in hidden shipyards throughout the solar system. Humanity was already planning their next move. They had won the defensive war. Now they were preparing for the offensive one. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of her ship, the Retribution, and looked at the star maps. So many worlds, so many targets. The Empire had hurt them, killed millions, destroyed cities, and humanity was going to make them pay for every single death. Captain, her tactical officer said, we have confirmation. All strike teams have reported successful attacks and are withdrawing. Good, Sarah said. How many Imperial worlds did we hit? 37, ma'am. The weapons were deployed as planned. Casualty estimates are still coming in, but preliminary numbers suggest millions of Imperial citizens affected. Sarah nodded slowly. She felt no joy in the number, no satisfaction, only a grim determination to see this through to the end. Prepare the next wave of attacks, she ordered. We are going to teach the Empire what it means to threaten humanity, and we are going to make sure they never forget the lesson. On the far side of the galaxy, Emperor Kalseth received the reports from his military commanders. The human counteroffensive had struck 37 systems simultaneously. The casualties were catastrophic. The economic damage would take years to repair, and the psychological impact on the Empire's citizens was immeasurable. For the first time in 1,000 years, the Galactic Empire was afraid, not of an external threat, not of a rival empire or an alien invasion. They were afraid of a single species from a single world who had refused to be conquered. The Emperor summoned his council and spoke a truth that changed the balance of power in the galaxy. We have awakened something that should have been left alone. The humans are no longer prey. They are predators, and we have taught them that we are vulnerable. In the silence that followed, every member of the council understood what that meant. The galaxy had a new apex predator, and its name was humanity. 5 years had passed since the failed invasion of Earth, and the Galactic Empire was dying. Not quickly, not dramatically, but slowly and steadily, like a great beast bleeding from 1,000 small wounds. Emperor Cal Seth stood in the throne room, his crystalline form flickering with patterns that showed his distress, and looked at the 2 military officers before him. General Vax Thor stood as he always had, straight and dignified despite his age and scars. Next to him, Admiral Zorkath looked like a broken shadow of the warrior he had once been. The Admiral had aged badly in 5 years. His armor was scarred and dented from a dozen battles against human forces. His eyes held a haunted look that never quite went away. "Report," the Emperor commanded, his voice resonating through the chamber. Vax's Thor stepped forward and activated a holographic display. The map of the Galactic Empire appeared, but it looked different than it had 5 years ago. Whole sectors were marked in red, indicating systems under attack or lost to rebellion. Yellow markers showed systems where Imperial control was contested. The amount of solid blue, representing secure Imperial territory, had shrunk considerably. "The situation continues to deteriorate," Vax Thor said bluntly. "In the 5 years since we withdrew from Earth, humanity has conducted over 200 separate military operations against Imperial targets. They have destroyed 15 major military installations, crippled our supply network in the outer sectors, and provided weapons and training to 17 different rebel groups within the Empire." He zoomed the map to show specific systems. The Catharin homeworld is still recovering from the biological attack. Their birth rate has dropped by 40%. The Zaxian colonies have lost 3 worlds entirely, the radiation levels making them uninhabitable. And just last month, humans destroyed the shipyards at Denab 4, setting back our naval construction by at least 2 years. "How many ships do they have now?" the Emperor asked. "Conservative estimates suggest at least 300 vessels capable of interstellar travel," Vaxthor replied. "But the real number is likely higher. They hide their construction facilities, move them constantly, and use stealth technology they derived from captured Imperial equipment. We cannot track them all." End quote. 300 ships against our thousands, Zorkath said quietly. "And yet, they are winning. They are not trying to conquer us," Vithor explained. "They are trying to bleed us. Every attack costs us resources, both material and political. Every human raid inspires another rebellion within the Empire. They have turned themselves into a symbol of resistance, proof that the Empire can be fought and defeated." The Emperor's crystalline form pulsed with anger. "Then we send a larger fleet. We mobilize the entire Imperial Navy and finish what we started." "With respect, Emperor," Vithor said carefully, "that is exactly what the humans want us to do." He pulled up new data, intelligence reports that made grim reading. Human agents have infiltrated several Imperial worlds. They have made contact with dissident groups, provided them with weapons, taught them tactics. If we pull our fleets to attack Earth, these groups will rise up. We will lose more worlds to rebellion than we could possibly gain by conquering one human planet. "So we do nothing," the Emperor demanded. "We allow this to continue. We negotiate," Vithor said. And the word fell into the chamber like a stone. Silence. The very concept of the Galactic Empire, negotiating with a species they had tried to conquer, was unthinkable. It showed weakness. It suggested that humanity was an equal power, which was impossible. Except it was not impossible anymore. "The humans have made it clear," Vithor continued, "that they will accept peace, but only on their terms. They want full recognition of Earth's sovereignty, reparations for the damage we caused, and a 50-light-year neutral zone around their system that no Imperial ship may enter." "Unacceptable," Zorkath said, speaking for the first time. "We cannot agree to such terms. It would make us look weak." "We are weak," Vithor said bluntly, "at least in relation to humanity, and every day we pretend otherwise. We grow weaker. Our economy is strained from constant military operations. Our citizens are afraid. Our subject species are questioning our authority. How long before the empire collapses entirely? And one before anyone could respond. An aide rushed into the chamber. The breach of protocol was so severe that guards actually raised their weapons before recognizing the aide as one of the emperor's own staff. "Forgive me, Emperor," the aide said, breathless, "but we have just received word. A human fleet has appeared in the capital system." The chamber erupted in chaos. Shouts, orders, demands for information. The emperor's form blazed with light as his emotions overwhelmed his control. "How many ships?" Vaxor demanded, his voice cutting through the noise. 20, General. They appeared at the edge of the system and have made no aggressive moves. They are broadcasting a request to speak with Imperial leadership. "It is a trick," Zorkath said. "A distraction, while they attack somewhere else," or Vithor said slowly. "They are here to negotiate. They could have attacked. 20 ships could do significant damage before we stop them. But they are asking to talk." The Emperor made his decision. "Bring them to the orbital platform under guard, and with weapons locked on them at all times. If they make any hostile move, destroy them." "And if they do not?" Vorthor asked. "Then we listen to what they have to say." 3 hours later, General Vaxthor stood in the diplomatic reception hall, watching as the human delegation arrived. He had never seen living humans before, only recordings and intelligence reports. Now, seeing them in person, he understood something he had missed before. They looked fragile. They were small compared to most galactic species, their bodies soft and unarmored. They moved with a grace that came from lower gravity, and they breathed the station's atmosphere without assistance, though he knew it was richer in oxygen than most species preferred. But their eyes held something that made Vaxthor's instinct scream danger. These were predator's eyes, intelligent and calculating. The human delegation was led by a woman who introduced herself as Admiral Yuki Tanaka Vaxthor. Recognize the name? She had commanded the human defense fleet in the first battle. The one who had sent her ship on a suicide run into an Imperial cruiser. "You survived," Vethor said, surprised. "I evacuated first," Admiral Tanaka replied with a slight smile. "I am not suicidal, General. Just committed. There is a difference." She was joined by 5 others. A military officer who watched everything with suspicious eyes. A civilian who was introduced as Earth's Secretary of Defense. A scientist who immediately started examining the station's architecture with fascination. And 2 others whose roles were not specified. They were escorted to a conference room where the Emperor waited, along with his full council. The room was designed to intimidate with the Emperor's crystalline form positioned above the others, literally looking down on anyone who entered. Admiral Tanaka looked around the room, nodded once as if confirming something to herself, and then sat down at the table without waiting for permission. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with us," she said. "I know this must be difficult. No one likes admitting they made a mistake. You are quite bold," the Emperor said, his voice cold. "For someone whose planet we could sterilize from orbit." "You could try," Tanaka replied calmly, "but it would be the last thing your empire ever did. We have positioned weapons throughout your territory, stealth ships in orbit around every major world, automated systems that will activate if we do not send regular override codes. If Earth dies, hundreds of Imperial worlds die with it." The council chamber erupted in outrage, but Tanaka continued speaking, her voice never rising. "We call it mutually assured destruction. It is an old concept for us, one we are very familiar with. You cannot destroy us without destroying yourselves. So, we are going to sit here as civilized beings and negotiate a peace that allows both of us to survive." "This is extortion," one council member shouted. "This is reality," Tanaka corrected. "You invaded our home. You killed millions of our people. You started a war that you thought would be easy. You were wrong. Now we are offering you a way out that does not end with both our civilizations in ruins." Emperor Kalseth studied the human admiral for a long moment. "What are your terms?" Tanaka pulled up a holographic display, full recognition of Earth and all its colonies as a sovereign nation. "Reparations for the damage you caused, to be paid over 50 years. A neutral zone of 50 light-years around Earth that Imperial ships may not enter without permission. and a formal apology from this council for the invasion. Unacceptable, Zorkath said. The reparations alone would bankrupt the Empire. Then you should not have started a war you could not afford to lose, Tanaka replied. She looked directly at Zorath, and the Admiral flinched from her gaze. You commanded the invasion fleet, did you not? How many of your own people died? How many families received notification that their loved ones were killed, trying to conquer a world that did not want to be conquered? Zorkath did not answer. I lost my ship, Tanaka continued, her voice softening slightly. I lost friends, colleagues, people I had known for years, and I know you lost people too. This war has cost both of us too much. It is time to end it. General Vaxthor spoke up. What guarantees do we have that humanity will honor this peace? The same guarantee you have always had, Tanaka said. We keep our promises. When we said we would defend Earth to the last human, we meant it. When we say we will leave you alone if you leave us alone, we mean that too. She stood and walked to the viewport, looking out at the stars. We did not want this war. We wanted to explore, to learn, to find our place among the stars. You forced us to become warriors, but we do not want to be warriors forever. We want to go back to building, creating, discovering. Give us peace, and we will give you the same. The Emperor considered this for a long moment. General Vaxthor, you tried to warn us. You told us to leave humanity alone. We did not listen. What is your recommendation now? Vaxthor did not hesitate. Accept their terms. We cannot win this war. We can only lose it slowly or quickly. This way we lose with honor and preserve what remains of the Empire. Admiral Zorkath. The Admiral looked at Admiral Tanaka, at the humans who had defeated him, humiliated him, and taught him what true warfare looked like. I agree with General Vaxthor. Accept the terms. The Emperor's crystalline form pulsed with complex patterns, processing the decision. Then, for the first time in the 1,000-year history of the Galactic Empire, an Emperor bowed to a species they had tried to conquer. We accept your terms, Emperor Kalseth said. The Empire recognizes Earth's sovereignty. We will pay reparations. We will respect your borders, and we offer our formal apology for the invasion. The council chamber was silent. History had just changed direction. Admiral Tanaka bowed in return. Thank you, Emperor. I hope this is the beginning of a better relationship between our peoples. As do I, the Emperor replied. But tell me, Admiral, what will humanity do now? You have defeated the greatest empire in the galaxy? What comes next for your species? Tanaka smiled, and it was a smile that sent chills through everyone who saw it. We explore, we build, we learn, and we make sure that no one ever threatens Earth again. She looked around the room, making eye contact with each council member. We are taking our place among the stars, not as subjects, not as servants, but as equals. And if anyone threatens that, they will learn the same lesson you did. The negotiations took 3 more days to finalize. Treaties were signed, borders were established, and the first human embassy on an alien world was opened in the imperial capital. The galaxy watched with a mixture of fear and fascination as humanity, the species that had been targeted for conquest, became a recognized power. On the final night before the human delegation left, General Vaxthor found Admiral Tanaka standing alone on an observation deck, looking at the stars. May I join you? He asked. Of course, General. They stood in silence for a moment, 2 warriors who understood each other better than most. I tried to warn them, Vaxthor said quietly. I told them what you were, what you could become. I know, Tanaka replied. I read your report. It was the most respectful thing anyone has ever done for us. You saw what we were capable of, and instead of trying to exploit it, you tried to prevent a war. I failed. You tried. That matters. Tanaka turned to look at him. What will you do now, General? The Empire is changing. The old ways are ending. The clown. Azur. The clown. I will retire, Vaxthor said. I am too old for these new times. But before I do, I want to know something. What would you have done if we had not accepted your terms? Tanaka was quiet for a long moment. Then she answered honestly. We would have burned your empire to the ground. Every world, every station, every ship. We would not have stopped until the Galactic Empire was a memory. And then we would have mourned all the deaths, ours and yours, and carried that weight for the rest of our existence. You mean that? Every word. Vax Thor felt a chill run through his body. You really did declare war on death itself, did you not? We declared war on anyone who threatens our freedom, Tanaka corrected. Death is just one enemy among many, but it is the last enemy, and we will defeat it too. Eventually, I believe you, Vothor said, and I think that terrifies me more than anything else. Tanaka smiled. Good. Fear is healthy. It keeps you cautious. It keeps you respectful. It keeps you alive. She offered her hand, a human gesture of respect and farewell. Vax's Thor took it, feeling how small and fragile her hand was in his, and yet, knowing the strength it represented. May we never meet in battle, General. May we never need to, Admiral. The human delegation left the next day, their ships vanishing into faster-than-light travel, heading back to Earth. As they departed, Vax Thor stood on the observation deck and watched them go. The galaxy had changed. Humanity had proven that the Empire was not invincible, that a determined species could fight and win against overwhelming odds. Other species would take note. Rebellions would grow. The old order would crack and eventually shatter. But perhaps that was not a bad thing. Perhaps the Empire had become too comfortable, too arrogant, too certain of its own superiority. Perhaps humanity, with their violence and their determination and their refusal to accept defeat, was exactly what the galaxy needed on Earth. In a ceremony attended by billions via broadcast, Admiral Tanaka stood before the Secretary General and received the highest honor humanity could bestow, the Medal of Terror, given only to those who had ensured the survival of the human species. You went to the heart of the enemy, the Secretary General said, and you brought back peace. The war is over, humanity is free, and the galaxy knows our name. The crowd erupted in cheers, but Tanaka's thoughts were elsewhere. She thought about the soldiers who had died defending Earth. She thought about the civilians killed in the bombardment. She thought about the Imperials who had died too. Soldiers following orders, caught up in a war they did not start. So many dead on both sides. So much loss, but also so much gained. Humanity had earned its place among the stars through blood and fire. They had proven they could not be conquered, would not be enslaved, and refused to surrender. The galaxy had learned what happened when you threatened Earth, and the galaxy would never forget. In the years that followed, humanity spread across the stars. They established colonies, made contact with other species, and slowly, carefully, began to build a new civilization. They remained armed, remained vigilant, but they also remained hopeful. The Galactic Empire survived, though in a diminished form. Other species gained independence, inspired by humanity's example. The old order gave way to something new, something more dynamic. And on every human ship, in every colony, in every home on Earth, the same message was taught to each new generation. We stand for freedom, we fight for peace, and we will never ever surrender. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Humanity was not prey. They were not subjects. They were not a species to be trifled with. They were the apex predators that the galaxy had not recognized until it was too late, and they were here to stay. In his retirement, General Vothor wrote a book about his experiences. The final chapter was titled, The Warning No One Heeded. It became required reading at every military academy in what remained of the Empire. The last paragraph was simple and direct. If you encounter humanity in your travels, show them respect. Offer them friendship. Treat them as equals. Because if you make them your enemy, they will teach you the same lesson they taught us. And by the time you learn it, it will be too late to matter. Admiral Zoroth never wrote about his experiences. He never spoke of the war publicly, but late at night in his private quarters. He would sometimes watch recordings of the first battle, of the human ships fighting against impossible odds, of crews singing as they died, and he would remember a young human girl with burns across her body, telling him that his people had no idea what war was. She had been right, they had learned, and the cost of that education had nearly destroyed everything they had built. The galaxy moved forward, changed forever, by a species that refused to be conquered. Humanity took its place among the stars, not as conquerors, not as slaves, but as free people who had earned their freedom through sacrifice and determination. And somewhere in the darkness between the stars, on every human ship and every human world, they sang their songs. Songs of defiance, of hope, of determination. Songs that spoke of a species that had looked at the greatest empire in the galaxy and said simply and clearly, no. That single word had changed everything, and the galaxy would never be the same again.